Chapter 4. In the morning I wake up disoriented. I can't quite believe I made it through the night, all by myself, so far from home. Sunlight is streaming in the windows past white dotted Swiss curtains, and in spite of myself, I'm a little pleased that I can put a name to the thin old-fashioned material. It's a shame it's not dimity, I think, because I like that word better. I'm not actually sure what dimity looks like. I'm the only kid I know who's even heard of dimity, who likes old-fashioned words, who's ever bothered to read the dusty, falling-apart books at the back of the school library, behind the brand-new computers. I think it's because my parents gave me so many antique toys when I was little, along with the Bratz dolls and the toy computers. I'm the only kid I know who had a Cabbage Patch doll. I was the only one who had a collection of My Little Pony videos and my own VCR, instead of just DVDs and a DVD player. Thinking about my old toys makes me sad, and I get an ache in my throat that makes me want to be a little kid again, just so I can get away with throwing myself on the floor and pounding my fists and hollering, "I want my mommy, I want daddy, I want to go home." Instead, I make myself sit up and put on my glasses so I can look around. I'm in one of two twin beds angled on one side of a spacious room opposite a well full of windows. Both of the beds are covered with lacy yellow comforters and the furniture is all white, even the desk that's under the windows. It's clearly been a little girl's room, and that makes me wonder about Marilee. "It's only me living here now," she said last night. Did she used to have a husband? Kids? Marilee's a mystery to me. The only thing I know about her is that my father said she was my aunt. Does that make her my father's sister or my mother's? It bothers me that I don't know this, but my parents never talked much about their own childhoods. For all they've told me about their pasts, you would think their lives began the same day as mine. I slip out of bed and cross the room to one of the windows. It looks out on a generous backyard studded with huge, brightly colored trees. Two at the back particularly stand out. One bigger, one smaller, both brilliant red. The autumn leaves surprised me because we were driving yesterday right up until nightfall. All we passed were bare, bleak landscapes with trees holding empty branches up to a gray sky. You've come south, I tell myself, and I'm proud of my powers of deduction. Trees lose their leaves later the farther south you go. Ergo, Marilee's house is a good deed south, as well as west of Greenleaf, Pennsylvania. But this reminds me, I don't even know what state I'm in, and I don't feel much like gloating over my brilliance. I wander around the room aimlessly, fingering a miniature glass tea set on the dresser, a china doll on the desk. Since I never stayed the night before at anyone else's house, I'm not sure what the rules are. Am I supposed to wait in the room until Marilee comes to get me? Or am I supposed to go downstairs so she knows I'm awake? Trying to decide, I open the door and peek out into the hall. I catch a glimpse of a sink and toilet behind a nearby door, and I decide that no one could fault me for going to the bathroom. The bathroom is an old-fashioned one, with claw feet on the bathtub and a black and white tile floor and separate knobby handles on the hot and cold faucets. If I concentrate really hard, I can distract myself from the weirdness of my situation by thinking about how this bathroom could fit in the early 1900s movie I was imagining the night before. But bathrooms don't usually figure very prominently in those kinds of movies, so I'm still feeling strange and awkward and uncomfortable when I open the door. Marilee is climbing the stairs right outside the bathroom. "Good morning," she says, with some of the fake heartiness my father employed last night. "I thought I heard you stirring about up here. I didn't know if you were an early riser or someone who could sleep the whole morning away like—" She freezes, looks a little panicked, then hastily continues, "Like a lot of kids. Anyhow, since you got to bed so late last night, I thought I'd just let you sleep until you woke up. Although with the time change, you're probably totally messed up. I took the day off work so I'd be sure to be here when you got up. Would you like some breakfast?" She's doing that thing where you talk too much when you don't know what to say. I tend to go in the other direction, not talking enough. So I stand there for a few seconds in silence. Am I in a different time zone now? I want to ask. And who is it that can sleep the entire morning away, besides me? But all I say is, breakfast would be nice. I follow her down the stairs, and she offers me bacon and eggs and toast. Or pancakes. How about pancakes? I choose Raisin Bran, the only cereal in the house. It's the kind of breakfast I wouldn't touch back home. Fruit Loops are more my style. But somehow it seems like I'd be even more beholden to Marilee if she went to the trouble of scrambling eggs or mixing pancake batter just for me. I feel strange enough, ladling the cereal up to my mouth and chewing and swallowing while Marilee sits across the table watching me. Suddenly, I'm disgusted with my own wimpiness, my willingness to sit here as meekly as a lamb, as a lab specimen under a microscope when I've got so many questions swarming through my mind. I swallow hard and the Raisin Bran escapes down my throat. Where do you work? I ask, because it seems like a nice neutral opening shot. Marilee jumps a little, like she's forgotten I have a voice, or like she thinks that's something I should already know. Oh, she says, at the school I teach kindergarten. I can see her as a kindergarten teacher, all cheerful and patient, and now let's try the wheels on the bus. One more time, boys and girls, I know you can do it. But her answer gives me a little pang for the year of school I missed, all because my mother said, I'm just not ready to send Bethany out into the world all by herself yet. As if kindergarten were full of brigades and murderers and thieves, not chunky books and brightly colored blocks and little girls in frilly socks who might have been my friends. It's Meadow Elementary just a few blocks away, Marilee is saying. I taught. Oh, never mind. I bend over my cereal and pretend to be searching for raisins, but really I'm adding up the number of times Marilee has broken off her words in the middle of a sentence. Last night, you looked so much like, up on the stairs, someone who could just sleep the whole morning away. And now, I taught. I tell myself I want just one more word in one of those sentences, but it probably wouldn't be enough. Marilee has fallen silent again. I take a sip of my orange juice, which is thick and full of pulp. I absolutely despise pulpy orange juice, but I swallow it anyway, as though that earns me the right to ask another question. A braver question. Whose room was I sleeping in? Marilee frowns ruefully. I guess you could say it's set up for grandchildren to come and visit, but I don't have any yet. My daughter's not even married, and she says there are no prospects right now, so it'll be a while. She shrugs. The furniture used to be my daughter's when she was a little girl. She always wanted 2 beds in her room so she could have sleepovers with friends. Marilee's words came out slower and slower as she comes to the end of her sentence, and she practically whispers the last word. A shadow crosses her face, like an echo of long ago pain, and in that instant she looks incredibly familiar. You're my mother's sister, aren't you? I blurt out. Even though she's taller, plumper, and older, Marilee has the same straight nose, the same wide mouth, the same intense eyes as my mother. Marilee just had to look sad for me to see the resemblance. Her plaintive expression deepens. They didn't even tell you that? She whispers. We stare at each other, my cereal forgotten. It's as if we've just crashed through the skeletal bridge I was trying to build between us with my pitiful little questions. We're in a free fall, waiting to crash into whatever lies below. The phone rings instead. We both jump and Marilee says, I'll get it, as if there's some possibility I'd race for it. She stands at the counter and offers a wary hello into the receiver. She listens and then says, She's right here, Walter, but I'd like to talk to you too before you hang up. And then I'm racing for the phone. I grab it from her rudely because I'm suddenly terrified she'll get her conversation in first and there won't be any time left for me. Daddy, I say, and Marilee backs away. She puts away the Raisin Bran box, takes the dishes to the sink, but she doesn't leave the kitchen. Oh, honey, it's so good to hear your voice, he says. His voice sounds tinny and artificial and far away. I feel like I can hear the distance between us over the phone. Where are you? I say. I think it's better if I don't tell you that. I can practically count on one hand the number of times my father has refused me any toy or CD or cool outfit or jewelry. But what I want to know now isn't a thing. Tears swarm in my eyes. Daddy, I dart a glance toward Marilee. She has her back to me. She's bent over the sink, washing dishes. Daddy, come back and get me. I can wait with you while Mom gets help. I'll be quiet. I'll be good. No, he says, and his voice is like a rock now. We are learning about Moss hardness scale in school right before I left home. And now I think Mr. Rodnow is wrong. Diamond is not the hardest substance. My father's voice should be the standard. I'm sorry, my father says, relenting a little, but it's the best way. You're safe here. Safe, I think. I've been picturing my parents at some kind of psychiatric institute for very sad people. How could that not be safe? Are some of the parents dangerous? Why is it safe for you if it isn't safe for me, I ask, an edge of brattiness creeping into my voice. Bethany, my father says helplessly, and the tears come back to my eyes. I don't want my father to be helpless. I want him to be fearless and in charge, my protector. I couldn't even call you last night, I complained. I tried your cell phone and there's something wrong. The telephone company said it was out of service. And so is my number, and Mom's, and don't call those numbers ever again, my father shouts. He's panicked. In fact, just stay away from the phone unless I call, and I will call, as much as I can. I promise. I'll try to call once a day. What if I need you more often than that? I whimper, and my vision blurs and the tears take over. The toaster I'm staring at seems to tremble before my eyes. Let me talk to Marilee, my father says. Somehow Marilee must have known that my part of the conversation is over, because she's suddenly beside me, holding out her hand for the phone. Why don't you go take a shower while I'm on the phone, she says brightly, as if she can't see I'm crying, as if I can't tell that's just the ploy for privacy. Numbly, I push my way out of the kitchen door and trudge up the stairs. I'm nearly at the top when I hear the kitchen door latch firmly. I stand still for a second, deciding in my mind. I can see the cord tethering the phone into the wall, ensuring that Marilee can't roam while she talks. Silently, I tiptoe back down the stairs and press my ear against the kitchen door. She needs to know about Elizabeth, Marilee's saying, ever so faintly on the other side of the door. She's quiet for a long time, and I worry I'm missing huge chunks of conversation, or that was the end of the conversation, and she's about to come scurrying out of the kitchen, slamming the door into my ear. Well, of course it would be best if you and Hillary told her yourselves, but you're not here right now, are you? Marilee explodes. I revise my opinion of her as a gentle, grandmotherly kindergarten teacher. I bet the kids in her class don't get away with anything. There's silence again, but I know it's just because my father's talking. I've got no hope of hearing his side of this conversation. I'm sorry, I do understand, but this must be tremendously difficult for the two of you, Marilee says. But I have to be so careful about what I say around Bethany. If you remember, I never was very good at keeping secrets. Or lying. Another silence, longer this time. I study the wrap of the hardwood floor beneath my feet. Yeah, well, I haven't had 13 years of practice, have I? Marilee says. Look, I'm happy to have Bethany stay here as long as she needs to, but she's not just some trinket you can throw away on a shelf until it's convenient for you to come back. I'm still trying to imagine my father's response to that when Marilee says, Okay, we'll talk again tomorrow. I spring back from the door and scramble up the stairs and into the bathroom. I turn on the water in the shower full blast. I peer into the mirror over the sink. Who is Elizabeth? I mutter. But the mirror offers me no reply except my own flushed, guilty reflection, and the steam from the shower thickens and obscures even that. Marilee is waiting for me in the living room when I creep down the stairs again, my hair wet, my face only slightly less flushed. She's holding a newspaper, but she lays it down on the couch when she hears me coming. I was just checking to see what's going on around town today, she says. Something you might want to do. I sit down on the edge of the couch and glance down at the paper. Its masthead reads, The Sanderfield Reporter, with the words, the best source of news in Sanderfield, Illinois, in smaller type below. It's amazing how relieved I feel that I won't have to ask someone amnesia, like someone like some amnesia victim in a soap opera. Where am I? I'm in Sanderfield, Illinois, not Indiana, not Iowa, Illinois. One small mystery solved. Who knows how many huge mysteries still gaping in front of me. I didn't know if there were any movies you wanted to see, Marilee says. She lets her voice trail off, leaving an opening for my answer. I could say I don't care about movies. I want you to tell me who Elizabeth is. I could say I want you to explain why my parents are acting so weird. But I open my mouth and I can't make words come out. Maybe I don't quite want to know. You're safe here, my father said over the phone. What did he mean? Am I safe for being ignorant? What's he trying to keep me safe from? Marilee's watching me. She seems to have worked up to being able to stare directly at me. I imagine us spending the entire day this way, her studying me tongue-tied and terrified. Is there anywhere around here to swim, I ask. Marilee does the double take. You like swimming? She asks incredulously, as if I've announced that I want to go skydiving or bungee jumping. I'm on a swim team, I say. If I get out of practice, it could ruin my times for the entire season. Coach Dinkle would be proud of my dedication, but it's not really my times I'm worried about. I just need to be in the water right now. I've never tried to explain this feeling to anybody, not even the other kids on my swim team, who tend to be as obsessed about times and personal bests as Coach Dinkle is. But it's different for me. I can remember the first time my parents took me to a swimming pool. I was 3 years old. Mom and Dad stood in the shallow end with me, their legs forming a protective circle around me so none of the other little kids would splash me. But something happened. Maybe I slipped. Maybe a little wave made it past the barrier of their bodies and knocked me down. Anyhow, my face slid under. Strangely, I wasn't scared. I didn't try and gulp in air. Maybe I'd just taken a big breath already by chance. So I opened my eyes wide and calmly looked around. The underwater world delighted me. The refraction of sunlight in the water currents, the crispness of the colors, the distortion of sound, the way every moment seemed to be in slow motion. I felt like I'd discovered a new universe, the one where I truly belonged. My father plucked me out of the water and immediately began trying to soothe me. There, Daddy won't let that bad old water get you. You're okay. I pushed him away. Again, I cried, trying to dive down out of his arms. Mom and Dad stared at me in astonishment, sort of the same way Marilee was staring at me now. I began howling, and nothing would satisfy me until they let me plunge back down into the water. That time I did choke a little on the water, but I didn't care. I surfaced again, only long enough to get air. What if she drowns? I remember Mom asking in a quavery voice. I guess we'll just have to teach her about holding her breath, Dad said, his voice cracking with amazement. All the way home from the pool that day, I chanted in a sing-songy voice, I'm a mermaid, I'm a mermaid, I'm a mermaid. I remember this mostly because of the way my parents sat so silently in the front seat of the car. They didn't keep turning around to smile at me the way they usually did when I sang in the back seat. Had they wanted me to be scared of the water? It probably didn't help that I kept nagging them to go back to the pool after that, nagged and begged and pleaded until I was signed up for my first swimming lesson only a week or so later. Even if they hadn't wanted me to swim, they hadn't been able to refuse me. From Marilee's expression now, though, I'm kind of expecting her to tell me no. You need an indoor pool this time of year, she said doubtfully. I guess there's one at the Y, but I'm not a member. Let me check their guest policies. She stands up and heads for the phone in the kitchen. I follow her because I don't know what else to do. This is Marilee Wilker, she says after looking up the number and dialing. I have a visitor staying with me who would like to go swimming. Is there any way? I've been studying the stenciled border that runs around the top of the kitchen walls, one painstakingly painted basket of pink and yellow and purple flowers after the other. But I look at Marilee when she says that one word. Visitor. Why didn't she say niece, I wonder? And maybe the question shows up in my eyes because Marilee's gaze darts nervously away. You would do that for me, she says into the phone. Well, thanks. We'll be there in a little bit. She hangs up and asks me, I guess it's possible after all. You have a swimsuit with you? Sure, I say. You don't mind swimming after you just finished taking a shower? I shrug. I don't feel like myself if I don't smell like chlorine, I say. Marilee laughs, but she has an odd expression on her face. What's so baffling about a 12-year-old girl's wanting to swim? 10 minutes later, we're sitting in Marilee's car, backing out of the driveway. My 7-inch growth spurt in the past year brought me to the grand height of 5 feet 5, which I think is supposed to be about average for an adult woman. But it's too much for Marilee's cars. My knees are practically up to my ears. Sorry, Marilee mutters, seeing me squirm. This is one of the earlier gas-electric cars, and they hadn't quite worked out the size issues back then. I look over and see that Marilee's knees fit perfectly under the doll-sized steering wheel. I hadn't really noticed before how much I tower over Marilee. It's strange since I was the shortest kid in my class from 1st grade through 6th grade, but I always kind of felt like I was destined to be tall. I don't dwell on it as much as I could. Usually it's just me driving around by myself, Marilee staying still, sounding apologetic. That's why Josh talked me into buying this. Josh, I say? My daughter. Marilee swings her head around, checking for cars as she turns into the street. Oh wait, let's go the other way so you can see downtown. I'll give you the mini tour of town. It won't take long. She turns down an alley, and I feel like she's changed the subject on purpose. I don't want a tour of Sanderfield. I want a road map of forbidden topics. Elizabeth, Josh, my parents' current location, their reason for leaving me with Marilee, their reason for never mentioning her to me before last night, her reason for not calling me her niece over the phone. I'm just not sure if I want that road map so I can avoid those topics or so I can explore them. Abraham Lincoln once spent the night in that house over there, but it was just because his carriage wheel broke on the outskirts of town, Marilee was saying. She babbles a little more about historic houses and Civil War troop movements, and then we're in the town square my parents and I drove through last night, when I thought the whole place was hibernating. It doesn't look much livelier this morning, though now the lights are on in the shops and furniture store, a florist, a Dollar General, and something called Prairie Expressions. Our downtown has had quite a revitalization in the past few years, Marilee says, sounding proud. It had kind of gone downhill there for a while. We were all really worried about our little town. We passed the flaking away billboard that I noticed last night, and a man is standing on a ladder beside it, peeling off its layers of year-old advertisements. Wonderful, Marilee says. I'm so glad they're finally taking care of that eyesore. We'll be in great shape now. My parents and I have moved around a lot, but we've always lived in suburbs in some East Coast city. I'm used to gleaming new malls, fancy restaurants, beautifully landscaped parks. By those standards, Sanderfield, with or without the billboard, looks run down, pathetic, and forgotten. But there's something I envy in Marilee's voice. The pride, the way she says we. I've never lived anywhere that inspired that tone in anyone's voice. The only we my family's ever been a part of, really, is the three of us. I helped plant those flowers on the courthouse lawn, Marilee says, pointing. The chrysanthemums, see? I look, and the chrysanthemums are glorious splashes of yellow and orange, bursting across the lawn in arches from a stone marker. Is there some kind of plaque over there? I ask, squinting at the square bronze on the marker. What, do they engrave your name in bronze every time you plant a couple of flowers? It's a stupid crack, but I'm surprised when Marilee doesn't answer right away. I glance over, and she's frozen, her fingers clenched on the steering wheel, her gaze fixed straight ahead. Then she winces and breaks the spell. No, that's a memorial, she says slowly. A memorial for someone who died a long time ago. I can hear the effort she's making to sound nonchalant, to pass off the plaque as just another dusty historical marker that doesn't matter to anyone anymore. But she's not a very good actress. Who, I want to ask, who's it a memorial to? Who died a long time ago? For a moment, I think I actually have asked those questions aloud because Marilee glances at me quickly, her face a troubled mask, and then she goes back to staring at the street ahead, as if she's wearing blinders. And then it's too late for me to ask anything, too awkward. We drive the rest of the way in silence. The Y is a low, sprawling building, surprisingly large for a town the size of Sanderfield. We stop at the front desk, and a cheerful-faced woman greets Marilee. You're in a hurry to get here. I'll fill out all the paperwork so you can go right in. I'll just need your name. She's looking at me, so I say Bethany. Bethany Cole. C-O-L-E. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Marilee's head jerk back and her eyebrows squint together. It's like she's surprised to hear my last name, like she didn't know what it was, or she thought it was something different. But when I turn and look at her directly, she's managed to iron out her expression. The woman at the desk has her head bent over the papers. She sees nothing. Address, she says. It's 3852 Tyler Ave. I start to reel out my Greenleaf, Pennsylvania address, though it already seems nearly as far away and as long ago as all the other houses my parents and I left behind. Marilee interrupts. Oh, just put down the same address as mine, she says. 605 Morning Street. It's probably easier to have everything local, isn't it? I guess, the woman says doubtfully. And are you sure I can't pay something? Marilee asks. I'm perfectly willing. The woman waves away the offer, the cheerful grin restored to her face. Oh, no, Miss Wilker. After what you did for my little Ronald, believe me, this is the least I can do. I tell everyone I wasn't sure he was even human until we moved here, and I sent him off to kindergarten, and you turned him around. I'll just put you down as my guest and Bethany down as Ronald's, and there's no charge. She beams at Marilee, and Marilee thanks her, and we head for the locker room. I already put my bathing suit on under my clothes, so all I have to do is yank off my jeans and sweater and toss them and my glasses and bag into a locker. After those few strange, awkward moments in the car and at the desk, I'm even more eager to immerse myself in chlorinated water, to think of nothing for the next hour but the pull of my strokes, the power of my kicks. There's a kind of etiquette of locker rooms, anyhow, that even if you yourself haven't stripped down to total nudity, you don't look around too much in case someone else has. So I'm not paying attention to anything except the need to grab my goggles and towel to shut my locker door. That makes it all the more jarring when I turn and come face to face with a strange woman who's absolutely staring at me, her jaw agape, her eyes practically popping out of their sockets. It can't be, she murmurs. Behind her, a little girl who's maybe 3 or 4 shivers in a wet towel. Mommy, she complains, I'm cold. Aren't you going to help me get changed? The woman doesn't seem to hear. She's so transfixed, staring at me. The woman actually lifts her hand and brushes her fingers against my skin to prove to herself that I'm not a hallucination. She says, and seems to recover control of herself a little bit. I'm sorry. You just look so much like someone I used to know, years ago, when I was your age, not middle-aged and loopy, and she gestures towards her stomach. Squinting, I realized her stomach sits far out over the waistband of her workout pants. She's pregnant. She's also still blinking like she can't believe her eyes. This is just amazing, she says. Are you by any chance related to... She's related to me. It's Marilee coming up behind me from the bathroom and on the other side of the locker room. The woman takes a step back, practically stepping on her daughter's toes. Oh, that makes sense then, I guess, she says, but she still sounds dazed. She's still staring at me. How have you been doing lately, Tammy? Marilee asks. How's Bryce adjusting to 2nd grade? I'm fine, the woman says vaguely. She tears her gaze away from me. Why aren't you just at school today, Miss Walker? You aren't sick, are you? No, Marilee says. Just took a personal day. First one in more than 20 years. It's kind of refreshing to see what the rest of the world does between 8 and 3. She smiles, and under the cover of that smile, I slip out of the locker room and into the pool area. Then I'm underwater, my arms flailing, my legs thrashing, but no matter how furiously I swim, I can't outpace my thoughts. That woman's expression was straight out of a horror movie. I think trying and failing to swim even faster. If I were a director, that's just how I tell an actress to look if she saw a ghost.